Sacagawea by Noah Remnick. Caption: There are no images of Sacagawea from her lifetime. This is how one artist envisioned Sacagawea with Lewis and Clark. In 1803, the U.S. government purchased a large area of land from the French government. This exchange is known as the Louisiana Purchase. That land today covers all of the U.S. states of Louisiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Oklahoma, and most of Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, and Minnesota. The land was home to many different native peoples who had lived there for generations and continued to live there as ownership of the land was claimed first by France, then England, then Spain, and then France again. When, in 1803, U.S. President Thomas Jefferson purchased the territory from France for $15 million. The size of the U.S. doubled. Then, in 1804, President Jefferson sent Meriwether Lewis and William Clark on an expedition. He wanted them to explore the map of the massive 828,000 square miles of territory. Lewis and Clark and their Corps of Discovery were charged with finding a route from the east through this enormous terrain all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Opening a route to the west would increase trade opportunities for the U.S. with China, particularly for a lucrative fur business. But to do so, the explorers knew they would encounter the many Native American tribes whose homelands they were exploring and that had been living there for centuries. They did not know anything about the tribes and could not communicate in the languages they spoke. Plus, they needed to pass over the treacherous mountains and rivers that were unfamiliar to them. To complete the job, Lewis and Clark hired a French-Canadian explorer who spoke French and some Hidasta, one of Native American languages they would need to communicate in. They also had one of his wives join them on the journey because she was Native American and spoke Hidasta and Shoshone, another Native American language. The woman, Sacagawea, was a member of the Lemhi Shoshone tribe. As a young girl, she was, top of the second page, she was kidnapped and enslaved by another tribe, the Hidasta, who then sold her to the Mandan tribe. Later, she was also sold to a French-Canadian fur trapper named Toussaint Charbonneau and became one of his wives. When Lewis and Clark hired Toussaint Charbonneau for their expedition, Sacagawea was pregnant. By the time the expedition team left the Mandans, she had given birth to a son, Jean-Baptiste. With a newborn baby strapped to her back, Sacagawea joined her husband and Lewis and Clark as an interpreter and guide. Like some Native American tribes, the Shoshone were nomadic, meaning they traveled from place to place with the seasons. In doing so, they learned how to travel the mountains and the forests and the rivers and the plains. They learned which plants were safe to eat and which were poisonous. They knew how to hunt for rabbits, foxes, elks, and deer, and even how to trap bighorn sheep. As a girl, Sacagawea learned all these skills that helped her and the Lewis and Clark expedition survive. Some historians say Sacagawea was critical in helping Lewis and Clark make their way through the area and up the Missouri River, and it is generally agreed that just having a Native American woman and baby with them helped put the other tribes at ease. By August of 1805, the expedition team arrived at the hunting grounds of the Shoshone, Sacagawea's original tribe. Lewis and Clark needed to trade for horses to cross the Rocky Mountains. As Sacagawea interpreted between Lewis and the chief of the Shoshones, she was shocked. She realized that the chief was her very own brother, Kamawait. The chief and the entire tribe were thrilled to be reunited with Sacagawea. Lewis and Clark traded many things with their new Shoshone friends, including clothes, eyeglasses, beads, and tobacco, so they could get horses in return. Chief Kamawait agreed to help Lewis and Clark and bartered with them for the horses and guides. When the time came for the expedition team to leave, Sacagawea left the tribe with them. The trip over the Rocky Mountains was arduous. The mountains were cold and had no vegetation. The explorers ended up eating candles to survive until they got to the warmer side of the mountain pass. Finally, they reached the western coast and the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. By now it was December and the Corps built a winter fort. It was cold and rainy. Lewis and Clark called their new home Fort Clatsop, after the nearby Native American tribe. The explorers set off on their return trip in March, and they had to make their way back and the way that they had come. Eventually, though, through snow, battles with Native American tribes, and steep mountain passes, the explorers returned to the village where they first met Sacagawea. Lewis and Clark had journals filled with notes and maps and precious samples of plants and animals they had encountered in the new Western Territory of the United States. It was time to deliver them to President Jefferson, who deemed the expedition a success, even though an all-water route was not found. Though only her husband was paid for the work, Lewis and Clark might not have had a successful journey without the guidance of Sacagawea. Good luck on the quiz.